What's up, guys? Spiritual Lemonade back with another video. We got my weekly video of everything I listen to. This is everything project-wise, album or EP from May 16th on. This is going to be everything I listen to. I don't know if there's going to be any, I don't remember if I listened to anything extra that may have been like an old release, because I'm also going to sprinkle some of those in there that I've done for re-releases, or not re-releases, but albums that I've listened to, you know, like Eremos or something like that, and I revisit. But we're going to go right into this first one. We got Get Well Soon by Lecrae and Miles Minnick. This was a collab EP of 7 songs. We had features from Tommy Zuko, from CJ Emulous, Yellow Hill, E40, DJ Malski, I believe that's it. But yeah, this was 7 songs of just a lot of West Coast rap. If I'm being super honest, there just wasn't anything super standout, at least in Miles Minnick's catalog. Obviously, we haven't really gotten a ton of West Coast Lecrae, so that was a little new. And this is obviously his album with Miles Minnick featured on every song. And then we also have 2 Kato on the Track productions on this, on Gang and Heaven Sent. Gang is my all-time favorite on this album. There was a couple other bangers on this that I will probably have on repeat in other playlists as well. The E40 song, I really liked that just because of how legendary that feature is. He has worked with Lecrae in the past before. And that song, I forget what it was called. I don't have the songs on the top of my head, but it just, to me, it didn't speak to me super well just because that was very focused on the West Coast, like LA, representing LA, and I'm not from there, so I don't feel as hype like in the chorus where it's just literally naming cities from LA or the Bay Area. So on that aspect, it's just not necessarily the song for me. The song On Time, that was also okay. It grew on me a little bit, but it's still not my all-time favorite on this project. But Gang is the best song on this. I think there was a song called Graced Up, Iced Out My Life. Those ones were fire. What was the other one? Heaven Sent was also okay. The reason I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars is just because there wasn't anything super standout from Lecrae, because this is really Lecrae's album. I wish that it just sounded a little bit rushed or something to me, either rushed or just like not a ton of like, you know, thought into it. It was just like a quick little EP, West Coast vibes, get that out, because Lecrae's also working on an album this year as well as Miles Minnick. So I'm hoping from both of them separately that those albums will be at least a little bit of a step up from this project. But overall, super fire, solid 3 out of 5 star on that one. Next up, we have Paradox by Josh Adams. I've never heard of this guy before, but this is an album of 8 tracks. It's a pretty short album. So Josh Adams, he is a newer artist to me. I have heard some songs from him before. He kind of has fit into my playlist of like Christian, R&B, folk, rap, just like a really chill vibe. He's like a singer-songwriter with almost like a worship influence as well. His songs are very worshipful, but they're not your average, or not your like typical worship production. It's got more of a singer-songwriter, folksy kind of sound to it, mixed with some chill pop as well. But my favorite song on this one was Goodbye to the Scriptures. Paradox was really good. Let's see. What was my other favorite? There was a song called Zion on there that was also really good. It was also just kind of, it was a chill project, so there wasn't anything super crazy on this. Everything was super consistent, so that's just why I gave it a solid 3 out of 5. Nothing really much to complain about from this one. Next one is Something Told Me by Bridge Music. This is a band, I think, like a worship band kind of, similar to Elevation Rhythm, I'd say, where they have kind of a vibey, groovier kind of worship style. They've been also in my summer playlist for the last couple years, like my chill pop kind of summer playlist. And this also has several songs that I'll be adding into it, into that playlist as well. It's an EP of 6 tracks, so it's a shorter project. And if I remember correctly, I'm going to look it up real quick. There was a couple songs on there that included some French singing as well, which was really cool. There was one specific feature that I wanted to shout out on this video because he absolutely slid on it. Ulufe Me Calling, I think, is the song featuring Reggie Darty and Eben. I'm not sure who is who, but throughout this project, it wasn't... Did I say French? I think it was French that they incorporated on this. J'adore is also a fire song that also is mostly in French, if not all in French. And it's just really good vibes, really solid chill vibes. I gave that a solid 3 out of 5 stars. Let's go into the next one, Out of Control by Venice. We are on a roll here with the 3 out of 5 stars because everything so far has been solid. It's just nothing has been super standout. And I'm going to kind of say the same thing for Venice. This project was super solid. There was only one feature, which was Dela Cruz. It was an album with 12 songs on it. And I'll say this, Venice has dropped several projects, and when I first got put onto him, one thing I really liked is he had a very underground sound, but he had pretty decent concept albums and messages in his songs, and this album, for some reason, just didn't speak to me as much as some of the other albums that he's put out in the past. While this music is still quality-wise the same quality as everything else he's put out, lyric-wise for me, it just didn't stick as well as some of his other projects in the past, which is why I gave it a 3 out of 5. There's really nothing like technically wrong with this album. Production-wise, mix-wise, it's all solid. It just, lyrically to me, for some reason just didn't speak to me as much, which maybe for you guys, some of you guys loved it. This is where music can just kind of be, down to a personal taste, and this is just personally not necessarily the album from Venice for me, compared to some of his other ones. Next one is Born in the Hood, Raised in the Church Deluxe Edition by Jared Allstar. This is the first album in the playlist of everything I listened to that really, really stood out to me. I almost gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, but I didn't. This was a 3.5 out of 5 stars, and this was a long album. It says reissue on here, so maybe this was out before and he just re-released it recently. But it was 17 tracks long. I really want to pull this up because there were also a lot of features on here. We have some familiar faces such as C4 Cortona, Brinson, St. Jones is somewhat of a familiar name, Big Phil. Big Phil was featured on a Young Drew album last year that I reacted to. But what really impressed me on this is kind of an old school sound, kind of a little bit of the 90s rap vibes going on throughout this project. And usually I have a pretty, I don't know how to say this, like, I'm not a huge fan of it most of the time, at least in Christian rap, just because it usually sounds very outdated. The bars are very outdated, very, most of the time, surface level. But for me, there were a ton of bars in here that I understood and, like, I've never heard before. Very creative punchlines. This is a perfect album if you are wanting some of that punchline, wordplay, but old school sounding vibes. Definitely go listen to this. Born in the Hood, Raised in the Church Deluxe Edition by Jared Allstar. Solid 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next one is Dreaming with My Eyes Open. Let me pull that up real quick on my phone. Alright, Dreaming with My Eyes Open. I gave this one a 2.5 out of 5 stars. This is one project that dropped this week that I do want to consider going back and listening to again, just to solidify my critiques on this one. And I'll say this, kind of similar to the old school hip-hop sound that I was talking about in the other album by Jared Allstar. This one was very similar. It kind of had some of that old school sound to it, but it also was very contradictory in the bars. Yeah, so there were some bars in the beginning where it was like talking about war and how he wants to stop all this fighting and the war, and then he goes on in a completely other song and is like, man, this is war, we're fighting battles here. And there's other stuff like that where it kind of just contradicts itself within the album that I want to go back and listen to, and I wish I listened to this recently, because this is like 4 or 5 days after listening to it for the first time that I'm making this video. So I can't give a super detailed, nitpick every little thing. But there were several times that I remember listening through on this project where I was like, it's just saying two different things, and it's like, which side are you on? What are you actually trying to say here? So that is why I gave that a 2.5 out of 5 stars. There were also a few awkward flows, and production could have been a little more interesting on this one. That's why I gave it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, we got Sons of Sunday. This is a pretty new band formed by a bunch of people, and the only... oh, wait. Bro, I just need to click on this and then I'll... okay, I found Music Board. I saved this video. Okay, so Sons of Sunday, it's a band formed by several people. The only two that I really know, the names off the top of my head, are Stephen Furtick and Brandon Lake. And this album, I'm in a little group chat on Music Board with a bunch of other Christian music reviewers, and I also kind of felt the same way as I was listening through this. This was a really good album. I gave it a solid 3 out of 5 stars. There wasn't anything that stood way out to me, which is why I just had to give it a 3 out of 5 instead of like a 3.5 out of 5. But this is the self-titled album, I believe their first full album, and what's interesting is that none of these songs are necessarily Christian songs. They are gospel songs that talk about God, but it's not explicitly like a Christian album. And some of the songs, it just felt like they were putting on an act, especially for people like Stephen Furtick and Brandon Lake, where they already have such a solid brand. It feels like they're just trying to do something way different just for the... I don't know if they're trying to capitalize off a sound or something. So it would be interesting to see where this goes. But for me, there were a handful of songs on here that were really, really solid that I would go back and listen to again. But as an album, it was a little weird. I'm not sure how I completely feel about it yet. I'm probably also going to have to revisit this one in the future as well. Maybe I'll have more to say on it. Next up, we have Abide by Aaron Williams. Again, I'm telling you guys, this week has been a 3 out of 5 star week. I'm not lying. And honestly, this could have been a 2.5 out of 5 as well, but I leaned more towards the 3 out of 5 stars. Mainly because the mix and the songwriting, it was all really good. It just really, this album was not for me. And apparently in that same group chat, they were talking about this album as well. And this had been released, almost all these songs, there were 7 tracks, almost all of them were released already. And one of them specifically has been released and released and released again and again. So he's kind of been riding his career off of one of these songs. I'm not sure which one it is. But yeah, there were only 2 new songs, which if I were more into his music, this is the first time I'm hearing of him, I would probably make that connection as well, and that would be why I wouldn't give it a higher rating than I did. But it is a solid production, solid mix and everything. There's really nothing musically I can complain about, which is why I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It's just personally not my taste. But if you're looking for some I guess it would be worship / CCM, Christian contemporary, this is an album that you should check out. I think it's worth listening to. Next up is Good Answers by Karen Peck and New River. This was an interesting listen, I will say that for sure. Apparently the lead singer, Karen Peck, I looked into her, I looked her up on Instagram and all that, just to see if I could get some more background to this, because within the first song I was like, this sounds like Dolly Parton. Karen Peck is apparently like a Grammy Award winning gospel artist. I've never heard of her before, but I saw this on one of the websites that I use to find new Christian music to react or listen to and review, and she popped up, and her band, I think, is the New River. I don't even know how to describe it. It just literally sounds like Dolly Parton music but Christian. I'm not super familiar with this specific vibe of music, so I really don't know what genre it would be considered, but it's like very country heavy, but old country. Not like the new kind of country. So if you're looking for like an old sounding album, but that's new, this is definitely for you. But I gave this a 2.5 out of 5 stars just because I wasn't the biggest fan of this. I think the one that I really liked and would listen to again was called, I think it was That's What Faith Looks Like, but it could also have been maybe River of Life. I'm not sure. It was kind of towards the middle of the album. Again, I listened to this like 5 days ago, so a lot of these albums are not fresh on my mind. But yeah, I gave it a 2.5 out of 5 just because it really was not my vibe of music. And it was okay mix-wise, but I also feel like the mix and quality of production could have been a little better as well, especially after hearing that she is a Grammy Award-winning artist. It did not sound like something that would win a Grammy to me. Next up is a worship album called Praise Before It Happens by Free Worship. This was a solid album. I gave this a 3 out of 5, and for a worship album, that is pretty high. I don't give many worship albums like this high of a rating, just because I'm very critical, and I probably shouldn't be, and I kind of go back and forth on whether I rate worship albums and how I rate them. But this is how I believe a worship album should be. It should be within this amount of time. It was 8 tracks and like 47 minutes long, under an hour. If it's over an hour long worship album, it's already getting knocked down a little bit for me, just because usually there's some unnecessarily long songs, like a 12 or 13 minute song. And this album had some long songs. I'm not opposed to long songs, but it just gets a little repetitive, specifically in the genre of worship. But there were like several 6-7 minute songs on this one, but it still worked. It was only 47 minutes long, and everything was super solid. If you're looking for some new worship, go check this album out. The next album, or EP, I should say EP, that we're going to be checking out is called Talents by Colin Michael. This one was, 5 tracks long. I gave this a 2.5 out of 5 stars. This guy, the reason I checked this one out is because someone commented. I don't know if this was one of those comments where it was this guy asking for a request under a different profile, or if it was genuinely just someone who likes his music requesting a reaction to this EP. But I did end up looking it up. I didn't react to it, but this definitely has a lot of potential. He has a lot of potential. Usually it's the other way around, but for him, he had super solid production. Everything was super interesting, not your typical like just, oh, I'm an up-and-coming artist, I'm just going to use a YouTube beat, which maybe they were from YouTube, but they were very interesting beats. It was a very nice selection of instrumentals, and his mix as well was really good, really solid. What really hurt him on this EP is just very sloppy flows and very inconsistent flows, and I'd say even some of the songwriting could have been reworked a little bit. But as a whole, it was pretty good, but not like a 3 out of 5 kind of good. What held him back just was the lack of consistency in the flows, so I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. Okay, we got 2 more albums to check out and talk about. These two are going to be on Spotify. I don't have them on Music Board yet. I've tried several times, and the last couple days I haven't been able to log anything in Music Board that hasn't been reviewed yet. I have issues with that a lot because I review a lot of things that haven't been reviewed yet. So the data on there takes a while to be on Music Board and then be able to rate it. So these will just be on Spotify, but I will tell you my out of 5-star review. This next one is by an artist named Caleb Cabe. I met him at the John Keith album listening party. He had reached out to me apparently last year, back in November, I think, when this album dropped. Yeah, back in early November, and I just didn't see that email. It had just gotten lost in a lot of the emails that I get. I wasn't sure what to expect. He kind of sent me a little bit of a background on his music and like what he's doing. He has been doing music for like 15 years, he said, and he had come from like a lot of stuff in his past, like sin and all that, and now he is living for Christ and everything, which is super cool. And when I was listening through this album, I noticed a couple things. The first thing is it's definitely obvious that he has been making music for like 15 years. He definitely knows what he's doing when it comes to melody. And a lot of the stuff that he's doing on this is very simple melodies. But his voice really uses his voice, especially when he tries to do like just very subtle runs and everything. It does not sound forced, especially when artists use autotune. Sometimes it sounds like they're forcing it because they don't fully know how to sing. It sounds like he really does know how to sing, and he just is using autotune as a tool. And then the other thing I noticed is not something I noticed, but just a note about this album, is I really preferred the songs where he was singing more than rapping, just because on some of the rapping songs, again, like I was saying with some of the other albums in this list, some of the flows were a little bit inconsistent, a little bit wordy, and could be maybe even just like rewritten a little bit or gone back and kind of flows fixed. The one song that stood out to me was Rish, which is just rich, but he pronounces it as Rish in the song. That was my favorite song on this one, and I think he did kind of dabble a little bit with the rap mixed with some of the melodic stuff as well. The title track Issues was really good as well. I would give this a solid 3 out of 5 stars as well. I know I've been doing a lot of 3 out of 5 stars this week, but it genuinely has just been a very solid release week for music. And I know this didn't drop this week, it dropped back last year, but I did want to talk about that. And he also said he is dropping more music this year, so you guys be on the lookout for more music from Caleb Cabe. And then the last EP, I think it is, I want to talk about is The Prelude by Nathan Oswalt. This dropped this week, and I don't know why I didn't review it on Music Board, because I reviewed everything else that I listened to the same day on Music Board. I must have just overlooked this. But I just want to say this, the cover art is very generic, and I was judging based off of the cover art. I was like, what is this going to sound like? But he was on the list on Christian music to check out this week that I look up on Google, and he popped up. And I just want to say this, very, very solid project. The songwriting is incredible. The production, the mix is very well done. I give this a 3.5 out of 5 stars on Music Board. I will try and get that up as soon as possible. The next time that I'm able to log stuff on Music Board, I will be reviewing the last 2 that I didn't get to do on Music Board. Go follow all these artists. I don't have the links in the description for everyone because that's just crazy. That's too much stuff. But you can go find all these people on Spotify, on Instagram. Go listen to their music. It was a good, solid week, May 16th, all through this week. And I will see you guys next week for everything that drops on May 23rd. Go be fruitful. Let's go.